10:30 p.m. Friday 24th of August 1956, in the Troodos Mountains above Limassol, Cyprus. Andrula walked home alone from the bar. It was a warm night with a soft breeze blowing off the hills. She paused at the edge of the village, breathing in the scents of the woods and lifting her heavy black hair to allow the gently moving air to cool her pale neck. She felt no threat from the friendly village darkness. She had lived here all her 19 years. She knew everyone. She was related to most of the other inhabitants in one way or another. It was home. She sighed. She would miss the set of utter belonging when she was away in Athens. She shrugged and let her hair fall down her back again as she turned the corner of her stone barn and into her courtyard. It would not be for long, and when she came back next time with Nikos, things would be different. She would be different too, a wife. She did not notice the young man in the greenish-brown uniform as he flitted from shadow to doorway to shadow behind her on her way home. She had not noticed him in the bar. She had not really been aware of the 3 soldiers at the taverna at all, except as a source of mild irritation at the foolish noise they made. Her head had been, and remained, full of Nikos, and what the articles in the newspaper meant to them both. Longing for him was tinged with excitement at what they meant to do for Cyprus. She could not wait to see the weapons that he would bring from Piraeus on his uncle's ship. She meant to hide them in the shepherd's hut on the wooded hillside behind her house. These weapons, she was sure, were just the first of many, which would drive both the Turks and the British into the sea. Then she and Nikos would help to bring back Makarios from the distant Seychelles, to do what was necessary for the good of all true Cypriots. She touched the medallion. 3 days more to wait for Nikos. It was too long. Her father had promised her to Nikos Theodorakis when she had been 10 years old, and he had been a stocky, serious 12, as part of the 2 families' plan to join their neighbouring lands. She had not minded their decision, and had grown to welcome the prospect of marriage to Nikos. He was strong and muscular. He laughed a great deal, and sang the village songs with tears in his eyes. Andrula sighed, thinking about Nikos. He was not quite the handsome prince in the fairy tale, but as they had grown up together, she had learned to love him, and now they were quite grown up, the wedding couldn't be soon enough for either of them. She felt a sudden pang of hot desire for him. Her breath caught as she thought of the way his black hair curled thickly on his brown neck, and how obvious his desire for her had been when she had seen him last time, when he had held her firmly against his body to kiss her goodbye. She blushed in the dark and smiled at the memory of her own body's immediate and very unfamiliar response. If only her mother were here. Andrula longed to ask her so many questions. It was confusing. Since the death of her parents in February, she and her younger sister Maria had lived alone together in the family house, watched over by a married cousin, and she had worked the land with help from her father-in-law and his brothers. Nikos' family had decided to bring forward the wedding to September, and both Andrula and Nikos were very happy. 3 gold medallions on twisted chains had been struck in Athens, to Nikos' own design, as betrothal pledges. 1 was for Andrula, 1 was for Nikos himself, and the 3rd was for Maria. In default of a father, Maria would need a next of kin when her sister married. The medallion was a promise of protection for life, a promise that she would never lack a home or a family. Maria would belong to the Theodorakis family after the marriage, just as would her sister. Andrula opened the door of the stone house and, ducking her head to pass under the looped crimson door curtains, stepped into the dark hallway of the only home that she'd ever known. In 3 days, Nikos would come, and she and Maria would leave their home and move to Nikos' father's house to prepare for the wedding. Briefly she thought of her sister, who was staying with a cousin across the valley for a few days. Poor little Maria, she thought. When Nikos comes, he will explain it to her. When he comes, all will be better. As she was undressing for bed, the door was quietly opened. Her back was towards him, and he moved silently. She felt nothing after the first blow, and she went down into the dark of an unknown country. If you liked it, keep an eye on my website and I will read some more.